Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Workforce Workshop. Today, we will talk about the best practices for remote training at your organization. So let's start with how remote training can benefit your organization in times of a pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has made what many had previously thought was impossible to happen: sending employees home and allowing them to work from there. What was once a privilege for some employees have now become the new normal for many. Industry experts predict that about 70% of global workforce will adapt a remote work setup at least 5 days a month by 2025. At present, tech giants such as Dell, Twitter, Facebook are offering permanent flexible working options, much to relief of their employees. Other industry leaders such as Deloitte, American Express, Boeing, to name a few, are also adapting a flexible working arrangement, signaling that remote work is here to stay, with or without the pandemic. As a result, remote training is becoming an integral part of running a company's operations. In this episode, we will discuss how remote training can benefit a company, its challenges and ways to overcome them, as well as the role of learning management system. What is remote training? Remote training refers to the process of coaching and upskilling an employee from a distance. It relies on technology to facilitate training and often takes the form of webinars, online courses, podcasts, and virtual classes, among others. Remote training is essentially similar to virtual training, where the learner and the instructor are not physically present in the same room. There are two types of remote training: synchronous and asynchronous. First, synchronous remote training. Synchronous remote training happens when the learner and the instructor interact at the same time but in different locations. The exchange happens in real time, and many involve a group of trainees. Some common examples of synchronous training are virtual classrooms, remote desktop demonstrations, live webinars, and instant messaging. This type of training promotes engagement and interaction between the trainee and the instructor. It also addresses gaps, especially when the student needs to follow up on a certain topic or clarify something. Additionally, synchronous training enables trainees to ask questions and receive the answers immediately. However, this method could be more costly than asynchronous training, as it requires the participants and the instructors to be present at the same time. If there are multiple students involved, the pace of teaching may not always match the level of comprehension of every participant, potentially leaving slow learners behind. Asynchronous remote training. Meanwhile, asynchronous training does not require the instructor and the trainees to be present at the same time. This allows the students to learn at their own pace with little help from the instructor and get access to the learning materials at any time. This method is perfect for those who have a busy schedule, as it can be continued at the participant's most convenient time. It's also more cost-efficient than synchronous training, as it does not require any travel expenses. Students are given the freedom to skip topics that they have already known, providing more flexible and agile learning process. Some examples of asynchronous remote training are shared document storage and podcasts. However, this type of remote training leaves very little room for collaboration. The students would not be able to get answers and feedback right away compared to the real-time setup. As it is a self-paced training, this method requires extra motivation from the learner to complete. How to know if my organization needs remote training or not? Remote training offers a wealth of opportunities, but as attractive as it may be, this method does not suit all employees. Take a look at the following factors if you are wondering whether your company would benefit from remote training or not. Your staff turnover is high. Recent studies show that professional development remains a key motivating factor among employees. This allows the workforce to have up-to-date skills and knowledge while ensuring efficiency and productivity. If your turnover rate is high, you may have to revisit what kind of growth opportunities you are giving to your staff. Employees who have regular access to training resources, whether they be professional or self-development, are likely to become more motivated to stay in a company. You need to stay updated with regulatory requirements. Keeping up with regulatory demands is essential for most industries. For example, financial services companies may need to revise or create policies to comply with the changing regulatory environment. Creating online certifications and refresher courses is ideal for this scenario, as it will enable your employees to access these training materials depending on their schedules. Your employees are geographically diverse. Are your employees located in different parts of the world and work in various time zones? If so, you must make sure that all of them are given the same quality of training regardless of where they are. Remote training is recommended for companies whose employees are located in different countries, as the logistics are less complex while the cost is reduced. If you are also one of the many companies who choose to shift a significant portion of their workforce to work from home setup, then remote training is necessary. Low engagement among remote workers. One of the main challenges of remote work setup is the tendency to have less engagement and collaboration between employees. Aside from regular check-ins and virtual huddles, this sense of disconnection can be addressed through organizing online courses specifically designed for each team where employees are expected to actively participate. Remote training can also stimulate employees' engagement by using interactive virtual resources and tools. Benefits of remote training: cost efficiency. In traditional setup, conducting employee training sessions require an engaging and qualified speakers, which means additional cost to cover the professional fees. You also have to consider other factors such as meal and travel expenses, as well as printing fees. On top of these, you would take into account the lost output as you arrange the logistics required in conducting physical training. Remote training resolves this cost burden because you no longer have to splurge money to bring the speaker and the attendees in one place. You also get to save printing costs since the training material used for remote learning are stored on the cloud. If you need to update something, all you have to do is edit the file and notify the attendees about the changes. Flexibility. Let's admit it. Attending training, particularly those for compliance and regulatory requirement, can sometimes be a hassle, especially when work deadlines are approaching. With remote training, the employees get to decide when to start the lesson or the modules, depending on their schedules. The flexibility also contributes to the employee's productivity by making sure that learning takes place during the most convenient schedules and not at the expense of other equally important tasks at work. Personalized learning experiences. One of the major benefits of remote training is that it allows employees to learn at their own pace. Learners are also given the opportunity to tailor their learning curve based on their desired schedules on topics that they think are more relevant to their profession. Knowledge retention. All training materials used for remote training are stored on a centralized online database. This means learners can revisit these tools anytime should they need to review or clarify certain concepts that are not clear to them. Depending on the available resources, remote training also enables employees to access information using their desired formats such as audio, video, or a combination of both, thereby acknowledging employees' unique learning style. Having a centralized database of training material has also its significant merits. According to neuroscience studies, people tend to learn better using distributed practice, a method by which the learner consumes information over many but in spaced out sessions. This is opposed to mass practice where the learner conducts fewer but longer study sessions. Employee motivation. Offering a variety of training opportunity to your employee makes them feel appreciated and wanted. According to a survey by human resource services provider ProSkype, potential for career growth and development was among the 5 things that millennials look for in a job. A 2019 report by professional networking site LinkedIn also found that 94% of its survey respondents said that they would stick with their companies longer if they were learning and development opportunities. Remote training can help your staff better understand their role in the company and let them know that there are opportunities for growth within their post, while making sure that their skills remain relevant and up to date. Challenges of remote training. Having the capacity to conduct remote training is a boon for employees who are looking to enjoy flexibility at work. But this does not come without any hurdles, particularly for employers. Here are some of the common challenges of facilitating remote training. Technological disruption. Imagine taking an online training course when the power gets cut or the Wi-Fi connection suddenly fluctuates. These are some of the technological challenges that inevitably come as companies shift to remote work. Since remote training largely relies on technology, even a brief disruption to the connection could impact the overall learning experience. Some employees who are not technological adept may also find a hard time to keep up with the use of the online training tools. Distraction. While allowing employees to work anywhere gives them flexibility, it also opens the doors to distraction, especially if work is done at home. Distractions may include family responsibilities, house chores, and even self-imposed interruptions such as procrastinating. Background noise, such as dogs barking, can also interrupt the flow of your remote training, though this can be addressed by employing noise-canceling headphones. Lack of collaboration. Due to the lack of interaction, remote training may be perceived as impersonal. Facial expressions and gestures are great communications clues that add depth to a conversation. Unfortunately, migrating the discourse to an online platform leaves little room for these social cues. If you are conducting asynchronous training, receiving feedback may take longer than usual. If the trainee has questions or clarification, it may take a while before getting an answer, potentially disrupting the learning momentum. Additionally, the attention of the trainee could be divided since the session is not being conducted face-to-face. Ways to improve remote training. Invest in remote training tools. One of the most cost-effective ways to facilitate remote training by investing in learning management systems, LMS, a software application that monitors and reports e-training programs. Some of the most popular learning management systems that you may consider are Moodle, Edmodo, Blackboard, Skillsoft, and Cornerstone. An LMS allows you to create, update, and store your learning material online. Add employees to your system anywhere and at any time. Track the progress of each learner and host webinars and conduct live Q&A forums. To make your remote training more effective, you should also consider using as many formats as possible. You can combine synchronous and asynchronous training, blended learning, and employ a mixture of the formats such as audio, worksheet, presentations, videos, checklists, and instructor-led trainings as well. You also need to make your training material mobile friendly, as employees do not always have access to their laptop, especially those who desire to complete their training outside the working hours. Pin down skills gap. When preparing your remote training plan, it is important to identify your company's goals and key performance indicators, KPIs. Do your employees possess the relevant skills to contribute to the company's growth? It's a great question. If not, how would training fill the skills gap? You can also identify top performing employees as a benchmark against employees who lack skills. Use gamification. In corporate training, gamifications refer to techniques that resemble gaming design elements so that the learning experience becomes engaging and proactive. Research shows that learning and development is more efficient when the participants are immersed in an engaging journey. Some examples of gamification features that you can incorporate into your remote training process are the use of leaderboard systems, badges, and points, as well as certificates once the employee had completed the program. Gamification is a great way to promote knowledge retention while recognizing their achievements. Ask for feedback. You should document your entire remote training process to evaluate where you succeed and which areas you should improve on. It is important to ask for feedback to recognize your room for improvement. You can distribute surveys at the end of every session and conduct a Q&A to address any issues. Now, let's conclude today's episode. Remote training provides a wealth of opportunities to companies and employees, especially at a time when the corporate landscape is adopting a work-from-home setup due to the pandemic. It is a necessary step to adapt with the changing workspace challenges and improve the productivity while saving on training costs. However, it also comes with challenges such as technological disruptions and vulnerability to distractions that should be addressed, so as not to interfere with the learning process. As an employer, you should take into account what your employees need to better contribute to the company's growth targets and maximize the availability of software tools to be able to create solid learning materials. This is all for today's episode. I will see you next week, where we will discuss the tips for successful indirect procurement. Links to everything will be in the description below. If you like our content, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. It will notify you about the new content that we share with you every week. This will help us to produce great content for our professional audience. Let us know if there's something you would like us to discuss in a future episode. Please click the link in the show notes and you can address your question directly to me. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.